Greetings, dear friends. In the previous lesson, we finished working on the header. We need to move on, but before we start the next block, let's talk about organizing. Work with the GitHub repository. Remember, when we started working on the header, we created a separate branch, named it block header, and committed all changes to it. So, if we now go to our repository, we essentially have three branches. One is main, which is the primary one. Another is dev, where we will send changes for testing and monitor them. The block header, which we worked on, a few words about organizing work. If it's a large project and several developers are working on it, tasks are divided by blocks. That is, one developer works on the hero block, another developer on the latest news. So, for such a structure, we create a separate branch, for each block, as in our case with the header block, we will now work with the next block for hero block. And we will not add changes to this block. Header. First of all, we will need to test it. Of course, rarely. Who tests? We currently have very little code in the project, we just started it. And rarely does someone make one block, upload it to a test server, and test it. There's nothing to test there, we basically tested it on the local machine. But for demonstration, I will show this in this lesson. So, hold on. The changes that have been added over the last few lessons are in this separate branch, the header block. And we need to first create a match with the dev branch so that all these changes automatically go to our test server, meaning the live site intended for testing. If, so to speak, in quotes, there are no errors on this site and the block works perfectly, then we can make the first pull request and then merge this branch with the main. After that, we can create a new branch to work on the hero block. I have just described to you the sequence usually used when several developers are working on a project, or if a single developer is working on the project. It doesn't make sense to make so many moves. It's enough to create a separate branch for each page and push all changes there. And when the page is implemented on the local machine and tested, it can be sent to the test server, and if everything is fine, it can be on the live server. I think you have already noticed that in the previous lessons, we mainly wrote all the code for the catalog. The header block, meaning the catalog, is intended specifically for this block. Since we just started the project, we had a CSS file, a global one, where we transferred the variables, and a JavaScript file, also global, where we wrote a couple of lines in JS. But these are rare cases. Usually, we always work with a specific block, right in this catalog. And that's why the system with separate branches for the block is very suitable, and you can organize the project work structure for one person, two, or even three simultaneously. That is, three people can simultaneously develop different blocks. Then these branches are merged, and because they do not edit the same files, conflicts or situations where something needs to be manually confirmed will rarely occur. We will adhere to this system in this course, and let's take the first step. Let's merge our header block. Let's run the git status command and make sure that we are specifically in the header block branch, and it confirms that we are indeed in the header block. Next, we need to merge with the dev branch to test on the test server. We can do this here through the terminal by entering the necessary commands, or we can do it directly on the GitHub website by creating a pull request. But not to our branch, to the dev branch. I will show you both methods now. So, if we are working through the terminal, we first switch to the dev branch, git checkout. Dev. We have now switched to this branch. Dev. Next, we write the git command, merge, and write the block. And after running this command, if no conflicts arise, these two branches will merge. And I will have the latest changes in the dev branch. I just need to commit them and push to the server. The moment I push them to the server, CI/CD will start and send them to the test server. If any conflicts do arise, and it cannot automatically merge the branches, they will be displayed here. We can manually open them, review, apply the necessary actions, and only then commit and push. I will not do this now. Through the console, I want to show you the same thing, but through the browser on the GitHub website, because the project has just started. There can't be any conflicts because this is the first block. There are no files that would overlap and be edited in different branches. Therefore, on GitHub, this can be implemented as follows. I specifically want to show you when there is no conflict. When there is a conflict, you will be forced to proceed in this way. It suits you better because you will clearly see where the conflict is, which files, and you can fix them immediately. All right, let's create a new pull request. So we need to go to branch D, meaning we will first test and then merge with the branch of the head block. And as you can see, by default, there was no fog, meaning everything is fine, no conflicts arise. We can create this pull request. We create it. I see some thematic title and description. Next, when you work in a team of 2-3 people, there is always someone responsible for this branch. You can designate yourself and someone who should review this pull request. In this case, I am the sole author of this repository, working alone on the project, so it loses its meaning. Here is this section. But as a rule, when we work together, the blocks that I create are reviewed by my colleague. The blocks that my colleague creates, he selects me here as the reviewer, and I review his blocks. We create a pull request. Wonderful. Now we have a separate pull request created. Our branch and the dev main are still clean. That is, until this pull request is confirmed, nothing really happens. You see, the last commit here was 3 days ago. The actions are also not triggered. By the way, if you do this through the terminal, but in other video lessons, of course, we do. And through the terminal, you won't have a pull request until you create it. Through the terminal, we do a push and it will automatically trigger everything once more. We go into this pull request and choose either merge or squash merge. In this case, I will leave the pull request as is for now. Clicking confirm. Now the branch has merged with dev. A pull has automatically occurred into this branch. If I go into action, you see my CI/CD is starting and the files will be sent now right here to this test server. So essentially what I did was nothing other than adding my changes to the dev branch to test. Let's wait for it to finish. Let's refresh the site. You see, this is what I wanted to show. The maintenance mode. So right now files are being uploaded there and the site is unavailable for a moment, just for a few seconds. The site is unavailable for a very short time. So if this workflow takes us 44 seconds or 39 seconds, then the site is basically unavailable for just a few seconds. Because first, let's refresh it so it loads. First we prepare the archives, then they are sent to the server. And only when all the files on the server are ready to be unpacked, only then, as you remember, we did this. The maintenance file is created. It is quickly unpacked. This takes literally a few seconds, and then the maintenance is removed. Therefore, purely technically for users, this maintenance mode lasts very little time. Don't worry, but you managed to see it on the screen. We already see the new header. Wonderful. We don't see the changes. Let's refresh with cache clearing. But of course, we need to recreate it in the admin panel. So let's go to the admin panel. This site uses Cloudflare, so it's important to adhere to it after each update and in the block. By the way, right now we merged with the block branch, but on the local machine, I am currently in dev. I don't see these changes, so we always run the git fetch command. And guide saying, and now it has downloaded everything. As you can see in our repository, we have this block appearing. This is already in the D branch where I am currently located. So every time you add changes, don't forget to increase the version for the block. Right here, and for the main, this one, styled CSS, which is the main file of the template. Well, we increase the version because this value is added to the links with CSS, and JavaScript and Cloudflare will always load the latest versions. Let's go to the admin panel. I'm interested in the editor. This header needs to be recreated. For some reason, the editor is not loading and we are doing this for the first time. So we need to activate our plugins. This is a new site for us. We haven't worked on it yet. Let's activate them and go in again. So after activation, the header appeared, the plugins were activated, and the blocks appeared. But for some reason, it's not loading. The editor. The console is showing some error. So the problem is solved. There was a 520 error. This error occurs when there is an authentication issue. And through the WordPress API, it couldn't retrieve the necessary JSON. I thought it was related to Cloudflare. I tried to fix it, struggled for several hours, then contacted hosting support, and it turns out that on the server where these sites are hosted, there is an additional check like a firewall, which was interrupting this authentication. They disabled it for this site, and consequently, all WordPress functionality started working. Therefore, we can continue this lesson. We are restoring our block. We will upload a sweater here. We can put something in the menu, or we can leave it as is, leaving it this way. Next, we remember that we have a group in the header. It's not here, so we will add it. We forgot to update the source code of the template itself. Remember, we made the first variation and placed it in parts. But here it is without a group. When recreating, we will add it now. But when we add these changes on the live server, it will be there because we remember it and we will fix it now. The navigation. Just like that, add to. Links only for testing as well as the logo. We didn't increase the size to 96. Don't forget to also set the settings that we set on the local machine. As far as I remember, those were the exact settings we had. Updating now. Testing. At first glance, it looks as it should. In other words, the block is tested and can be sent to the main branch. Returning to our editor, we write the command git checkout. Block. Going back to our header block, I mentioned that we need to update this header. So we don't have to do a lot manually in the admin panel. Therefore, we go to the admin panel of the local machine. You see, let's close this test server. We tested there, we found some bugs, as it turns out, and we need to save this structure so as not to recreate it. We enter the editor into the header. We can specifically enter the header. I didn't log into the test machine, didn't open it separately, but edited directly on the page itself. Here I log in because I only needed source code, and I take the source code from here. So this is convenient because look, the logo is immediately in the size I need. A certain type is set by default for the group, which apparently is the corner. I clicked in the admin panel, meaning the switch. In general, we save this from here and we update this in header.php. That is, we saved a backup for the header. Secondly, while the video was paused, I updated WordPress as well. Since there is a new version and the current version on test server 1, I will update it in this file as well, so that in the future on the live server, or even if we update the dev server, a fresher WordPress will load. Furthermore, although I didn't add changes to the block itself, I will update it for completeness, +1 for the version, and at the same time update a version right here. That is, made the update +1 added. Let's specify final checks. And committing the changes and pushing them to the GitHub repository, then returning to GitHub. These changes came to us in the header block, so we will create a new pull request. But we will already merge it into the main branch, into our main branch along the way. The changes we made, we see in main, we write a title and description if necessary, and create this pull request. Next, this pull request needs to be approved. Now our main branch has the latest changes, meaning everything we tested on the test server is now present in the main branch, but it is not being sent anywhere. Because remember, to the live site, changes will only be sent when we make a release. So let's make a fresh release now. Usually my release version matches the version I set in the style CSS. Therefore, in future lessons, we will adjust it, but for now, we are doing it 0. And in future releases, we will simply increase it, raise it in the original file. Publishing the release. Now, upon publishing, an action is created that triggers the instructions of our CI/CD. The files will now be sent to the live server. I opened the live server. You see, the workflow is working and the site is operational. That is, while the archives with files are being prepared and uploaded to the site, it doesn't affect anything. The site will only go offline at the stage when everything is already on the server, ready for unpacking. Only then will it go into maintenance. The Modi already went offline before maintenance because our header is already in the live server. The workflow has also completed. Let's try reloading with cache clearing, but in any case, we need to recreate this header. We go in, select the block. Let's go into the folder here specifically. The problem here is not even that it needs to be recreated, but that I didn't activate the plugins on the test server. I activated them while it was on pause. And here I am in live mode, so I go into the plugins. And our core plugins, they are needed for the website to work. This one, in principle, is not needed for now, but we will activate it too. Let it be activated. And now let's go editor, and let's go. into the header. So, it doesn't see the navigation because the ID is different. On the local machine, there are some slugs, and here they are completely different. And consequently, it's also clear from the logo that it needs to be uploaded again. We recreated the navigation, meaning we created an aesthetic page, which is currently in draft status, so it doesn't appear on the actual site. It needs to be published. But principle is clear. To start working on the next block, we need to switch to main here in our local version of Git. Take the changes for yourself because, look, we have an old version here. We don't have the new blocks we created. The new ones we created. Therefore, git patch, git pull. And now we have the latest fresh version. We will work in the next lessons with Hero, with this block, so we create a separate branch for it. Now I am already in the new branch. We'll start from the version, this is my last release, to match our structure. Now we can work on development using this structure with separate branches. This concludes the current lesson. See you in the next lesson where we will develop the Hero block.